It's our 400th episode, and I'm going to share 5 things today that I've learned along the way here today on 5-Minute Mentoring. Hey, my friend, so glad that you are here with me to celebrate 400 episodes. Can you believe it? I mean, I'm tired of hearing myself talk. 400 episodes of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. It's pretty amazing. Back when we started this in April 2018, I don't even know if I thought we could do 400 podcasts, much less find myself here now and seeing people all over the world listening and watching this podcast twice a week, every week, week in and week out. It's really been a huge blessing. I wanted to share 5 things that have kind of been realizations for me along the way that I hope will help you along the way as you're growing your art business or doing whatever it is that God's called you to do. The first thing I want to say is this. As I have interviewed now hundreds of artists and people in the kingdom here on the podcast, I've realized that rarely does change and transformation happen in people's lives in these huge, life-changing, like these big, moments of dynamite revelation or whatever, but they happen in small moments of revelation and response. They happen in those aha moments when people are walking along, God shows them something and they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Or they hear somebody speak, or they, listen to a video in the mentoring program, or they read a book or whatever, and a little light bulb goes off and they choose in that moment to respond. Most of us just kind of let things go through our head and, oh, that's cool, and kind of move on. But real change happens when you have revelation and response. And I think over the years, hearing so many stories here on the podcast, I just have tried to attune my heart even more to the little things that God's saying to me along the way so that I can continue that process of transformation in my life. Number 2, one of the things that I realized along the way and have responded to is this concept that a lot of people call batching, which is just kind of doing the same things all at once. You may think, gosh, how does Matt have all this time to not only do the mentoring program and speak and make his own art and all this kind of stuff, but also do the podcast? Well, it's because of batching. One of the things that I do when I record 5-minute mentoring or interviews or that sort of thing, we do those a lot of times all in one chunk. So I'll sit down and I'll record 5 or 10 5-minute mentorings at once. I'll record, 10 or 15 interviews in 1 week, and we'll get them all out of the way. And then we release them all throughout the year. That is really wonderful from a time management perspective because it allows me to really make the most of my time. And I tell artists to do the same thing in their business. If there are things that you can be doing in your life that you can combine that task and do multiples in one specific period of time, whether that be a few hours a day within this week or whatever, it really helps you stay in that energy zone, stay in that focus zone, and make the most of your time. It is a lot easier than constantly starting and stopping, things that you're doing over the years. Number 3, kind of along with that, is that repurposing is something that we really try to do in the podcast and something that I really try to do in my life. That is, if I record a podcast episode or a YouTube video, we try to use that in as many different places as possible. So a lot of times if I'm recording a video like this, we'll put the audio on the podcast, we'll put the video on YouTube, we'll put the video on social media, we'll cut it up for Reels or YouTube Shorts, we'll even transcribe it for instant blog articles on our blog and even as fodder for social media posts. So again, one video becomes the ability to have multiple posts reaching tons more people than just simply one piece of content would. And again, that's something I teach artists to do as well. And I would encourage you to do. If you're recording things and doing things on social media, use both batching and repurposing in order to get a lot more mileage out of what you're doing. Number 4, I would say in hearing lots and lots of stories from people over time, one of the things, and just knowing, how human nature is, one of the things that I've seen happen in the lives of artists that really make it is that they choose not to give up too early. Many people, when they're starting out on their art journey, because there is so much to do, there's the business side and the art side and the spiritual side and renewing your mind and getting rid of that old baggage and old junky kind of thinking that's been plaguing you for years. When you're trying to balance all that, it can be difficult, which is, why we created the mentoring program to give you a simple path to follow so you don't have to manage that by yourself. But hey, if you're on that journey, regardless, it can be a challenge to manage all of the different pieces and parts of really thrive as an artist, artistically, spiritually, and in business. And I just find that artists often give up way too soon. They can't see the fruit early enough. They can't feel the momentum early enough. And instead of putting in the work, instead of putting their nose to the grindstone and continue to getting those baby steps that we talk about in the mentoring program, getting those little bitty wins, they just give up because they can't see the whole thing come together. And I just want to encourage you, when I started this podcast, there wasn't nobody listening. And now we get tons and tons of downloads every week. Our YouTube channel is growing by leaps and bounds, but it didn't start like that. Back in April of 2018, nobody knew I had a podcast. I had to kind of let people know. I didn't know what I was doing. They sound a lot better, look a lot better nowadays than they did back then. But guess what? I didn't give up. And you're not going to hit 400 until you hit 1, and then you hit 5, and then you hit 10, and then you hit 50, and then 100. You got to keep going. And unless you're committed to keep going, you're never going to see the results that you're dreaming for in your art business. And I would just say tenacity and that spiritual grit is a huge, huge part of reaching 400 episodes. And then the last thing I would say is this: hearing your stories of transformation that have come out of this podcast and you being inspired by the guests that I've had on and the messages that I'm sharing on 5-Minute Mentoring. Listen, that never, ever gets old. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing and for watching, for sharing this time with me every week. It's a huge blessing to me. I never get tired of hearing them, and it's a major inspiration when I'm trying to create content and choose people that would be on the podcast as interviews. I'm always thinking, how will this help our listeners and our viewers get more transformation and more inspiration in their life? And I would just say, listen, if you're somebody that's doing something incredible in the world, whether you're teaching art, making art, inspiring others, whatever, listen to the people that you're working with. Tell their stories of transformation. Not only will it inspire you, it'll inspire others to be involved in what you're doing as well. And I just say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your faithful listening for 400 episodes. If you've not taken the chance to subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, or if you've not taken a chance to review the podcast or leave a comment on YouTube, please take a moment in celebration of this 400th episode and do that. It lets us know that you're listening. It lets us know that we're a blessing in your life. And be sure to share it on social media and tell everybody that you're listening to the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. I love you, my friend. I will see you again very soon for episode 401, and not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. All right. I love you. And until next time, remember, you were created to thrive. Bye.